From To Keto LLC, it's Keto Woman Podcast with Daisy Brackenhall.
Hello, Keto lovelies. I'm Daisy Brackenhall, and I've spent most of my life struggling with my weight and confidence, and have always had a difficult relationship with food. Even when I finally got to my target weight, after weight loss surgery and eating low carb, I couldn't maintain it and I was miserable. Keto has given me the freedom to fall in love with food again, without the constant gain, loss, guilt, virtue cycle of before. Health and happiness is where it's at now, running on fat. Welcome to the Keto Woman Podcast. Each week I'll be chatting to inspirational women, maybe even the odd man, to discover the secrets to their success so that I can share them with you. So what is keto? Keto is a way of eating that enables you to switch your body's main fuel source from sugar to fat. Who doesn't want to be a fat burner, right? But how do we achieve this? A great place to start is by keeping carbs to 20 grams or less per day. So things like leafy greens and above ground vegetables, plus some nuts and seeds, and the incidental carbs you find in things like dairy. Moderate protein, scale to your lean body mass, and then fat to satiety. Once you're in the swing of things, you can tweak it to suit you. Make your own personalised keto. I'll be asking my guest each week what their keto looks like to show you just how flexible and fabulous this way of eating can be. I'm not a doctor, and most of my guests won't be either, so we can't give you medical advice. It's always best to work with your own doctor because they know you and your medical history, and so have access to the bigger picture. This week's extraordinary woman is Mary McNeight. Mary is one of the top medical alert service dog trainers in the US. She has helped to train over 150 medical alert dogs for diabetes, seizures, migraines, POTS and AFib, with people from all over the world through online and in-person classes. Mary has won multiple national awards for her training, spoken at dog training conferences on the topic of service dog training, been an expert witness for court cases involving service dogs, been featured on TV, radio and all over the internet. Mary is a teacher, an author and a disability rights advocate. Has a canine studies certificate and has attended over 20 educational conferences on the science of dog training. She started her service dog training program in 2008 because she needed a service dog and could find no one to help her train her own dog. Mary was originally diagnosed with depression and social anxiety, but after learning how to train medical alert dogs for diabetes using her own dog, she found out that her zombie panic anxiety attacks were actually severe hyperglycemia episodes when her dog started spontaneously alerting her 10 minutes before her blood sugar went low. Eventually, like her father and grandparents on both sides of her family, she became a type 2 diabetic. Mary started keto in October 2017 and has lost 40 pounds, reduced her neuropathy, migraines, eczema, high blood pressure, and her endometriosis symptoms, stabilised her severe blood sugar swings, and her A1C has gone from 6.7 to 5.1. I'm pretty sure you're going to be as taken with Mary and her story as I was. Her passion for her dogs and the work she does is both palpable and infectious. What an extraordinary woman she is indeed. Welcome, Mary, to the Keto Woman Podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic.
It's lovely to be speaking to you today. Why don't you tell me a bit about your life before you came across keto?
All right. So we used to tease my mom that nothing was homemade in our house unless it came out of a box. So, my mom made beef stroganoff out of boxes, macaroni and cheese. As a kid, we were fed a lot of boxed food and it was a lot of processed and prepared food. My dad was a DEA agent and we got assigned to living in Pakistan. And that's kind of where my kind of sugar addiction started. I was a little kid. I was probably 8 years old at the time. It was the 1980s. And in Pakistan, there was literally no safe water to drink. You had to literally process your own water or get water from the embassy. And so there was a lot of soda pop, and Coke that we drank and in our household. And I really feel like that's where I kind of became addicted to sugar. It's because, there was nothing else to drink. Basically, it was either that or get Giardia. So, and I got Giardia multiple times, and we had to, take a ton of medication that, killed off the parasites and protozoas in us and stuff like that. And it was not a very, pleasant process, but I really think that, my life with my parents, and they were doing as best as they could, in the 1980s. We didn't have the internet or anything to help them along, and helping with nutrition information. So I don't fault them at all for my sugar addiction that I have. But I do think it definitely was, ingrained in my brain as a child to enjoy sugar, and sugar is safe, and sugar is fun, and sugar is comforting. So, and I feel like I'm really a serious sugar addict, and I've been overweight literally all of my life.
So how long were you in Pakistan for?
We were in Pakistan for 2 years, and we had to leave because my dad kept getting sick, and the entire family kept getting sick over and over again with Giardia and, all of the parasites in the food over there. And, it's literally like biblical times over there. Like they're literally, you go to the market and there's food lying on the ground, and the food that was fed to us was food that was carried in a cart with donkey poop inside of it, and it was just not the standard American diet that, we had been used to, where we had sterilized water and sterilized food in boxes.
Yeah, so that really messed with your gut, presumably.
Absolutely.
And like you're saying, so the rest of your family, do they have ongoing issues like you do from the same thing?
Yep. My mom has IBS. My dad, had, probably a page worth of diagnosis problems from, being in Pakistan. My sister has endometriosis, just like I do. The drug that they use to kill the parasites is known for causing, fertility problems and gut issues. And so, yeah, I definitely feel like my time in Pakistan negatively affected my gut health and microbiome, for sure.
Crikey, it sounds like it. So it not only did that, but, landed you with this intense sugar addiction as well.
Yes. I am an addict, basically. Yes.
Mm. And so you returned to America, did you, from Pakistan?
Yep. We moved to Detroit, actually.
Been there since?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And how did things progress from there? What other kind of issues? I mean, we've had a bit of a chat before the show, but, you've mentioned, perhaps some mental health issues and things like that. And perhaps you could tell me a bit about the other things that developed along the way.
So I was initially, when I was in college, my senior year of college, I had some issues with remembering things. I was having problems with remembering things. And I went to see a therapist, and I was diagnosed with depression and social anxiety. And what happened was I ended up in, serious depression, because I would go out in public, and what would happen would be I would have what I call the zombie panic attacks. And I would basically just end up shutting down and sitting in the middle of the floor of the mall staring at the walls. And I'd have to have ambulance personnel called on me. And eventually my body would, the panic attack would stop, but it took a long time. I wouldn't talk to anybody or anything. I looked kind of like a drug addict, basically, just, like I just overdosed on medication or something like that. And it was very embarrassing for me to go out and be in public, because I would have these quote unquote panic attacks.
And presumably you didn't necessarily know when they were going to happen.
No, I had no idea when they were going to happen. Not at all. I wish I did.
So with nothing to predict it, that you say that well, presumably that increases the anxiety anyway. Exactly.
Just
as soon as you walk out the door.
Yeah. And, I've had neuropathy since 2012 in my feet. I had a 5 to 7 level pain every single day. I actually got hurt. My back got hurt in 1997. I had an accident in 1997, and I've literally been in chronic pain since 1997 from my back. I've had migraines since 1995. So basically the year that I started college, I started having migraines. I had the IBS from when I lived in Pakistan. I have had irregular periods since, basically since my cycle started, and diagnosed with endometriosis after I had a very large grapefruit size chocolate cyst removed off of one of my ovaries. And in August of 2017, things were so bad with my health. I had high blood pressure, I had all these, I had in constant pain. And in August of 2017, at that point, I was so bad that I literally could not walk to my mailbox, which is maybe less than 150 feet, without getting winded and having chest pain. And I was like, there's something seriously wrong with me. And I was having 2 to 4, issues a day with my, quote unquote anxiety. And I was like, there's gotta be something going on with me, something different, this is not right.
And what had you been told? I mean, because presumably you'd spoken to some doctors about this, and
oh yes, I'd had plenty of therapy and plenty of medication, and no matter what I did for my quote unquote anxiety and depression, like it didn't really seem to cure anything. So in October of no, it wasn't October. It was April of 2005. I got my first service dog for depression and anxiety. And after several years, I had to retire him, and I got a puppy. And at that point, I couldn't find anybody to help me train my own service dog. So I decided to become the resource that I could not find.
So this first dog that you had was pre-trained, came to you ready to go?
He came to me at 8 years of age. He was from the Humane Society. He had excellent public access skills. And basically, when I would have my zombie panic attacks, he would lick my face. He would come and sit on my lap. He would basically just engage me kind of out of it. And I had taught this next puppy to do the same thing. But it wasn't until I went down and, I ended up getting my canine studies degree in the state of Washington. There is actually no requirement whatsoever in the entire United States to be a service dog trainer. Like, you don't have to have any education. You don't have to have any degree. You don't have to have anything in order to call yourself a service dog trainer in the United States. It's really crazy. But so I went to this, it got my canine studies degree, and in 2009, I went down to a diabetic alert dog training class in California because I am all about continuing education. That's all I've attended something like 20 educational conferences since 2008. I'm just kind of like an education junkie. And so I went down there to learn about diabetic alert dog training because, my dad had diabetes, my grandmother had diabetes, my mother's grandmother had diabetes, my mother's mother had diabetes. It was just all in the family. And at the point when I was married too, my ex-husband was starting to experience diabetes episodes. His father had diabetes, his mother had diabetes. So it was just like kind of all over in the family. So I'm like, I'm pretty much destined to get this condition. I might as well go learn how to deal with it, Mm-hmm. So I went down there to learn about medical alert dog training. And within a couple of months of coming back, this dog who had been taught to alert to my ex-husband actually started alerting me prior to my quote unquote zombie panic attacks. And I was like, what in the world is going on here? And it turned out that I was having severe hypoglycemia episodes.
So you basically got diagnosed by your dog.
Yes, I did. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would have never known that my mental health problems were actually being caused by severe low blood sugar swings. So thank God for that dog. I mean, he's the inspiration for my entire program, my entire Train Your Own Service Dog program. And I did lose him, in June of 2016 to cancer. But, I have another alert dog here. Thankfully, now having Keto, I don't really have to use him as often as I did before. I actually went from being hypoglycemic, in 2008 to completely full-blown diabetic As they say, it takes 10 years for your body pretty much has diabetes 10 years before you actually get it. And that was the case for me. Like I was having hypoglycemia episodes, and then I started having high blood sugar episodes, and then I finally went into full-blown diabetes. So.
And what was his name, this wonder dog?
His name was Liam. And I think it means protected guardian. I think that's the reason why I chose that name. It's because
very apt.
That's what I wanted him to be, for me.
Yeah. So, tell me a bit more about this training and it fascinates me. I'll admit I'm absolute crap at training my dogs. I've never really done any. I mean, they kind of do. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and he said, but they kind of know. They do know your limits. You do. There's some kind of training going on there. But I've never been good at, training recall and things like that. And where I live, none of that really matters. I don't need any of it. So all I ask of my dogs is that they're just nice dogs, really. But I fully understand the importance of training dogs. But I mean, what I was going to say was, from a mental health aspect, that I found that my dogs are key to keeping my mood above a level. I've suffered from depression for years, and I always say they're what saves me from really hitting rock bottom. There's always a level that I think that you'll never quite fall below when you've got those dogs to just lift you back up, just to be with you. They're there all the time, and they're such a comfort.
Exactly.
But, no training goes on here.
There's actually an oxytocin release in your brain when you actually look at your dog too, which, that oxytocin is that, pleasure chemical.
Yeah. And you can feel it, can't you?
Exactly.
Especially when they're doing something, I'm looking at, I've got my French bulldog, Betty, asleep on the bed. I'm looking at her and just look at her little squishy face, and you can literally feel that chemical being released when you do it. So I can really understand. But okay, so that's me with no training, but I can see absolutely the benefit that I get from just having the dogs around. So it fascinates me that you can take this on to a next level and bring in this training to really help people, and I've seen videos of children with autism being helped, all sorts of things, and it's mind-blowing and wonderful to watch. But how do you go about that process? Because it seems, what are the signals they pick up on? I can see it for things like, I suppose, with mental health issues developing, I suppose they just pick up on the signals earlier. But what happens with illnesses and with hypos and things? Is that purely behavioral, or is there something to do with scent? Or how does it all work?
So 40% of your dog's brain is devoted just to their nose. So they're basically just big noses with dogs attached to the ends of them.
Which is why they can smell a piece of meat that's dropped on the floor
3 weeks ago,
2 miles away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they're so if you had a football field, that's the size of their olfactory capabilities. Our olfactory capabilities is the size of a postage stamp on a football field. And they've actually got dogs now that literally go out and find whale poo in the ocean. Like so they can collect the whale poo and determine what the whales are eating and how healthy they are. If dogs can find whale poo in the ocean, there is no doubt that they can smell what's going on inside of you, what biochemical changes are happening inside of you. And all we're doing with our training is we're harnessing that. We're teaching them, this is the important smell that you need to come to me and tell me about. And all the other smells that are happening in the environment, just kind of ignore them. So basically, it's kind of the opposite of everything, most dog trainers teach, which is basically don't use your nose, don't sniff anything, leave it constantly. And what we're doing is we're teaching, hey, use that nose for my benefit. Help me with my medical condition using that wonderful nose that God gave you. And we have no equipment. We have literally, there is not a single piece of scientific equipment that can recreate the smelling capacity of every dog on the planet. So it's dog noses just absolutely fascinate me.
It's pretty well all about the smell then.
Is.
I mean, do they watch for things like reactions or as well, or is that just me sort of putting a human spin on it?
That's a human spin. However, there are trainers who there are bad trainers who train using kind of body language cues. My training process is getting rid of body language cues. So basically, the basic tenets of the training is basically when a person goes low or when they go high, they spit on a piece of cotton, and what we do is we pair that smell of that low that's being exuded out of your body through your breath onto your spit. Basically, we take that scent and we pair that with food, and then we pair that smell of that. It's basically Pavlovian conditioning from high school. Do you remember Pavlovian conditioning?
Yeah.
Ring the bell, feed the dogs, ring the bell, feed the dogs, ring the bell, feed the dogs, ring the bell, the dog starts to drool. It's the same thing. So we just pair up the scent of the low blood sugar with food, and we do that over and over and over and over again. And then we pair that with a trick. And for my dogs, the trick is to paw for a low and spin in a circle for a high. So these dogs can detect sometimes 20 to 30 minutes before a meter can detect a low blood sugar or a high blood sugar, which allows a diabetic to keep their blood sugar in a normal range. So, we're not talking people going into 400, 500, 600 level blood sugar levels before they actually notice it. We're talking about keeping blood sugars in a quote unquote therapeutic range using a dog's nose.
Exactly. So I can see that. Yeah. So they're basically just giving you that heads up. So when you notice it, is not too late, but getting to be too late. So
Yes.
it's when a human notices it's, oh crap, I've got to do something about this straight away.
Yep.
Whereas the dog can tell you before, so you can take a preemptive strike to it actually happening at all.
Exactly, because when your blood sugar goes low, your mental faculties kind of disappear, and you don't think about eating food or any type of food is just abhorrent to you at that point. I don't want to eat.
So it's a double whammy. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And so what happens is these dogs can tell you before you get to that point. We don't want dogs alerting when you're comatose. We want dogs alerting when you actually have enough mental capacity to actually deal with it yourself and prevent yourself from getting to the point where you need to call an ambulance. Mm-hmm. So that's what these dogs do. They save people's lives by preventing them from, like I had a student who had 13 visits by an ambulance in 1 year. And it went from 13 visits 1 year. He got his medical alert dog trained. He went down to 1 visit in 1 year. And that's because he was locked in a hotel room and the dog, was locked in the hotel room with him and couldn't get him out of the hotel room because he'd never been trained. He was only 9 months old. So like the dogs are just absolutely amazing in their capacity to be able to smell and help diabetics.
Mm-hmm. And does it work the same way with other things that you're training them for? So for things like, mental health disorders or all the other service dogs that are out there, does it always work the same way or slightly different?
Well, I use positive reinforcement training. So I use food. The vast majority of really good trainers are going to be using positive reinforcement training because we don't want our dogs scared of us. The type of training that I do, however, with my dogs is I also teach intelligent disobedience, which is not necessarily taught to mobility dogs or, other types of service dogs, because, again, what happens when your blood sugar goes low is your brain tells you, like when I was low, I would push my dog off of me. I would say, get alone, get away, leave me alone, get off of me. I'll deal with it later. And so I have to teach my dog to come back over and over again and disobey me. And, that's not something that you necessarily teach a dog who is helping someone who, needs the dog to go get the walker or needs the dog to, go grab the phone for them or something like that. So and the other thing too is about medical alert dog training is we are teaching the dog it's completely opposite of all the other trainings, because we're teaching the dog to respond to a situation without being prompted to do so. Like all of the other service dogs, they're always being told what to do. Go get the phone, go do this, go do that. With a medical alert dog,
this is all about them using their initiative, isn't it?
Yes. The dog has to spontaneously, in any situation that they're in, go, I'm smelling that smell. Now I need to go contact my owner, find my owner, and tell them about it. And so the type of training that we do is kind of completely opposite for medical alert than we do for other types of service dogs.
So presumably then it's very specific to the disorder and the person you're training the dog for. So, you've explained how that works for diabetes, and they'll have, particular things that they then do to alert to whether it's high or low. And what you were saying about this selective disobedience, I can see exactly how that works. How does it work with, something completely different like autism, say? That presumably would be a whole different set of training skills.
Well, I actually don't work with autism service dogs. So service dog trainers are kind of like lawyers. We kind of all have our specialty. My specialty is medical alert dogs. So I do diabetes, seizures, narcolepsy, POTS, AFib, and I think I covered, and diabetes basically. So, but I'm not an expert in autism service dogs, mostly because I've never had children and I don't really understand children, the care of children. And so I never felt like I could be comfortable, helping someone with an autistic child. So that's why I've chosen to keep out of the autism service dog training. And plus this industry is not regulated whatsoever. And there are a lot of people out there who are scamming people. And it's a really sad fact that this industry isn't regulated. I wish I could give you information about autism, but I just, I'm not an expert.
No, it makes sense. I was plucking that out the air, really. I suppose what started me along that train of thought was when you were saying that you originally had your first service dog for the social anxiety issues that you had. So, more of a mental health disorder. And then you spoke about training your next dog. But then it turned out that I suppose, and that would have been a better example to use rather than autism, which is something completely different. I suppose what I was trying to get at was, is there a difference in those two kind of trainings, or did it just happen that you were, without knowing, training your dog to be a diabetes medical alert dog? Do you see what I'm saying? Well,
the issue with the first dog was that it was never able to tell me before something would happen. So with the diabetic alert dog training, the dog is able to give me a warning beforehand. So I never end up sitting in the middle of a mall staring at the wall, having the paramedics called on me because I look like a drug addict who's zoned out on opiates. It's a very embarrassing situation to be in. Thankfully, once I started having a dog and going out in public with the dog, it was more like, oh, she has a medical issue versus she's a drug addict, because a lot of diabetics, they get labeled drug addicts because they, their blood sugar causes bipolar-like, episodes. And my ex called me a rapid cycling bipolar at some point, because I'm like, please explain to me how rapid cycling bipolar can actually be fixed by drinking a Coca-Cola. It just doesn't work like that. I was, at that point when I was, still with my ex at that point, I hadn't been completely diagnosed as diabetic yet. So, I had been having these hypoglycemia episodes, and he saw my dog alerting to them. He saw me recovering from them, but yet somehow he didn't believe that I was, it was truly the diabetes that was causing this and not this, mental health issue that I was diagnosed with.
So that, I guess, is what I was trying to get at, that you were thinking you were training it for one thing, but actually you were training it without knowing. The dog knew better.
Yes, the dog was smarter than I was.
Actually training you as a diabetes alert. Fascinating. I mean, it sounds like a very rewarding career. You must really enjoy it.
Like, I made less than $9,000 last year. That's all that I made last year. And I don't care. I really don't care. I love helping people, and I love working with dogs so much. I'm actually allergic to dogs. I had 8 years of allergy shots to be allergic to be able to handle dogs. And still, if a dog licks my face, I get hives all over my face still. So like, I am basically killing myself slowly by doing this job, but I love it so much because, I have been in their position. I've been in that position of being so disabled. I had like 39 sick days the last time I had a full-time job. No one wants to hire someone who has 39 sick days in their history. So, and that was just 1 year, just 39 sick days in 1 year. So I know what it's like to be chronically ill and chronically in pain, and I want to do as much as possible to help people get out of that.
Is this something you teach as well? I mean, you actually do the hands-on training of the dogs, but do you teach other people how to do it as well, do you?
Yes. I had a trainer fly in from Spain. I have trainers who come into my classes, and, I've spoken at conferences with 6,000 other dog trainer members organizations. So, I've shared my knowledge. I've actually started to notice my email list. I have an email list for my business, and I've started to notice that like the email addresses in my list are starting to be, love thy dog at, train your dog at thisplace.com. So like dog trainers are actually starting to pop onto my email list versus the chronically ill people as well. So yeah, I do work with. I help other dog trainers learn how to train medical alert, and I help people train their own dogs for medical alert. And then I also I'm starting, now that I've started keto, now that I have energy, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. I'm trying not to clap my hands to ruin the audio here, but like I have so much energy now that I'm starting a puppy raising program in my community. So my next litter of puppies will go out into the community, and people will have to come back to me every week, with their puppy, and we'll do training with them and stuff. And I would have never been able to do this prior to keto. I would have never had enough energy to have people come into my house, have people calling me all hours of the day and night going, I don't know what's wrong with this puppy. Please help me with this puppy. I'd have never had the energy to deal with the issues that surround having 8 puppies in a community that I am responsible for. But now that I'm on a ketogenic diet and I have the energy level that has come with this and the mental clarity that's come with this and the lack of, up and down constant bipolar-ish blood sugar swings that I was having all the time, I'm going to be able to start a puppy raising program and help even more people.
That sounds interesting. And who doesn't love puppies? So it sounds like great fun as well. But a friend of mine, Claire in New Zealand, actually was talking about, she'd been having a conversation. I can't remember whether she was approached by this person or she'd been having a conversation anyway with being one of the families that these puppies go to. So for her benefit and for everyone who loves puppies, how does that process work? So are raising the puppies with a dog? I say raising the puppies, getting the puppies to the point where they can go to the homes, and then you place them in these homes, and then there's some kind of ongoing training between you and the families. How does that work?
So what will happen is they will go home to the person that I've chosen.
But these puppies, they're puppies that you will have raised from one of your dogs?
Yes. So one of my dogs will have puppies, and they will go at 8 weeks of age to a person in the community. They will have to come every week to classes and learn how to, sit down, stay, all of the obedient stuff. We'll talk about all the socialization that needs to happen. Like we need to go to train stations. We need to get them on buses. We need to get them, going out in the city. We need to take them to the Six Flags amusement parks. We need to take them places. So there will be weekly meetings for the first 6 months, and then biweekly meetings after that, and up until they're about 1.5 years of age. And at that point, they will be evaluated to see whether or not they are suitable for service work. Now, hopefully, with all the training and the socialization that these people have done with the dogs, then I will take them back in and I will do the actual task training and the actual finishing of the service dog training. But I can't do it without these puppy raisers. I mean, and if you are in the St. Louis metropolitan area and you are looking to give back to the diabetics in your community, or even people with disabilities in your community, I highly encourage you to contact me, because I need puppy raisers at this point, because they are the people who are going, you're going to get free information on dog training, number one. Number two, the other thing that happens too is if the dog ends up failing, you get a free Labradoodle. So you get to keep the dog. And sometimes the dog can fail for good reasons, like the dog's way too friendly with people, So it isn't always all bad reasons that a dog fails. It could be that, the dog has food allergies or something like that. We can't sell a dog to somebody that has food allergies. That's too big of a or flea allergies or something like that. You can't have a service dog going to Florida with flea allergies. It just doesn't work. So, sometimes these dogs will drop out of a program for a kind of a good reason versus a negative reason. And then you get a free Labradoodle, which is like a $3,000 dog, and you've got this amazing dog that has public access skills and is able to behave in exceptionally well in all environments. So it's a kind of a really nice trade-off.
It sounds like a very rewarding thing to do, and a very noble thing to do. I know that I'm pretty confident that I'm not the kind of person who'd be able to give it up at that 18-month mark. That must be an incredibly tough thing to do when you've not only bonded with this dog, but you've had this extra bonding process with all the training. I mean, I suppose you go into it knowing that, but that would be difficult not to fall in love completely.
The dog gets to go save someone's life.
I know,
every day.
It's an incredible payoff. I don't know that I could do it. But I suppose that's the thing, that you train yourself at the same time throughout the process, that you are doing this for this incredible reason, and that's what is going to happen at the end. Mm-hmm. And presumably when you've proved yourself as a fantastic medical alert puppy trainer, you get to do it again with another one.
Exactly. You get, hopefully by that time, we should have another puppy for you within a couple of months of the, me taking the dog back. And the other thing too is like, I'm just one person here, and I can make up my own rules. So if you want to have contact with that dog, every 6 months, and you want to go meet them for coffee or lunch, and let's let you do that.
I can see that being a great follow-up, actually, because when as hard as it would be, seeing that dog performing the function that you've been key in developing, seeing what it's actually doing in its new life situation, that would probably be the thing that healed the deep scars you had from having to give up the puppy. But amazing, what amazing projects you have. And we've been talking all about the dogs because, well, we both love dogs and it's fascinating. But tell me about you now, and was it a case of once you found out about the diabetes, that was the turning point with what switched you on to keto? How did that come about?
I wish it was that easy. Like, I spent years doing extensive damage to my body. I literally have neuropathy in my feet at this point. I'm 40 years old and I have 5 years of neuropathy damage in my feet already. And I was facing, eventually a foot amputation if I didn't do something about my diabetes. And the way that I actually learned about the ketogenic diet actually was, first off, it started out in August of 2017. I started praying to God, I asking him how I could get closer to him. And I actually heard fasting. And I was like, oh my, this is the devil talking to me. Diabetics can't fast. They die if they fast, you know? So, but I was watching the Jim Bakker show. And for those of you who know about Jim Bakker in the United States, he's actually back on TV and he talks about prepping. And as a daughter of a law enforcement officer, I'm kind of sort of, into prepping a little bit. And he had a doctor called Don Colbert on there who was talking about the ketogenic diet. And I was like, no, there's no way this can actually work. And so I started Googling about keto. I didn't buy the guy's book off of the site.
Was he talking about it specifically to help with diabetes?
Yes, he was talking about the ketogenic, his diet. His book is called The Keto Diet, I think it's called. And it was talking about how you can basically reverse diabetes, reverse migraines, all of these health conditions can be reversed utilizing a ketogenic diet. And I'd never been like, I was a tomboy as a kid, and I never really cared very much about my looks or anything like that. I wasn't a girly girl. I never really did a bunch of dieting when I was growing up, even though I was consistently overweight all of my life. I never really focused on my physical image. So I really didn't care very much about dieting. But when I started to hear that I could reverse my diabetes with diet, because no matter what medication they were giving me, it wasn't working. It wasn't controlling my foot pain. It wasn't controlling my blood sugar. Nothing was working. So I started Googling.
And you just hear that term progressive over and over again, don't
exactly.
you? So, well, this is just going to keep getting worse.
Yes.
So.
And that's what happened to my father. Like it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And more medical problems on one medical problem on top of another medical problem. And the medication that they give you gives you another medical problem. I mean, he literally had almost an entire page of diagnoses from from the time that in Pakistan, the damage that was done to his body through all the chemicals that were giving him, being constantly stressed out, being a law enforcement officer, and all of the incredibly bad food habits that he had. So, and again, he also had type 2 diabetes as well. But, I eventually found Jimmy Moore's podcast. I found the Fasting Talk podcast that he did, and that eventually led to the Two Keto Dudes podcast as well. So I did a ton of research about this because as I told you before, I'm very much into education. I am like an education Nazi. I love education. And I was like, I'm going to do this. So in October of 2017, I started a ketogenic diet. And I started out just like everyone else does. I tried to ketofy everything, all of my favorite food recipes. And I've gotten out of that now. But like the first 2 weeks were kind of bad because I was literally dealing with a sugar addiction. As you know, sugar, they've shown that sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And I was talking to one of my dad's DEA friends, and I was like, I don't know about this whole drug thing, like they're putting drug addicts in jail. Really, I think they should be working on sugar instead of drugs at this point. They should not be feeding children sugar because I have been suffering for years with this medical condition, and it's affected my mental health just as much as any, drug that's on your illegal drug schedule. And he didn't want to talk about that so much, but but yeah, I have, the first 2 weeks were kind of bad because I was dealing with sugar addiction. But after that, I went from 2 to 4 low blood sugars a day to 1 or 2 every week, which is a substantial difference. And I didn't instantly, like a lot of people, they go on a ketogenic diet and they're like, oh, I instantly feel immediately better. And that was not my case. I've been so sick for so long that, I really think it took about 5 full months for the ketogenic diet I was consistently losing weight, which was nice. That I really didn't care about the losing weight thing. I cared about the fact that I went from 2 to 5 migraines a month to 1, which now in 8 months, my blood sugars were normalized. My mood was stabilized because my blood sugars weren't going up and down. My endometriosis, like the constant pain that I had with my periods was, it's gone. My periods have normalized. I used to go like every 2-3 months without a period. And my IBS got better. And, my neuropathy went from a level of 5 to 7, sometimes 8 level pain every single day to, I'm like maybe a 1 or 2. I can wear normal shoes now again. My neighbors used to make fun of me in the winter. They're like, why are you wearing Tevas out here? And I'm like, my feet hurt so much. I can't wear normal shoes. I'm walking in the middle of the winter in Tevas. And, but like I'm so excited about all of these changes that have happened in my body because of ketogenic diet that I just had to share it with, my students.
Well, I mean, it's obvious really, isn't it? Because it goes hand in hand. I mean, you're training these dogs to alert their humans to this condition, but you also have the power to advise the humans from their end what they can do to, not necessarily make the dogs completely redundant, but certainly, they're not going to need to be alerting them so much. So, I mean, why wouldn't you want to share that? It's a powerful accompaniment to what you do, isn't it?
Yes.
Puts you out of a job a bit, maybe, but in a good way.
I don't care. I really don't. I don't care. I would much rather be the last resort than be the first thing that they choose to do because, because I've been in their shoes. I've been in chronic pain since 1997. I know what it's like to have paramedics treat you like a drug addict, to have people think that you're some crazy person because your blood sugar's going low or there's something medically wrong with you. Like I deal with narcoleptics, who pass out, with sleep attacks, in the middle of the mall, and they get treated like drug addicts, like they're the scum of the earth. And I know I've been there. I know what it's like. And I would much rather have my students utilize diet now that I've seen the results of what a ketogenic diet do. I would much rather have them use that to manage their medical condition than spend a ton of money with me, and train their own dog to try to alert them to their blood sugars because, ketogenic diet is going to do much more for you to prevent you from getting your feet lopped off than a medical alert dog will ever do.
Exactly. Incredible. And so tell me a bit about what your day-to-day keto looks like now. You said you sort of started with, and I bet you went out like we all did, and a great long list of all those fancy ingredients to make everything under the sun. And to be honest, it's still fun to do that from time to time, but it's a lot of energy, isn't it? It sounds like you're probably on a bit more of a simple day-to-day now.
Yeah, like initially I was, I put stevia in everything. I've actually not had a very good reaction to fake sugars. Anytime I eat a fake sugar, it literally feels like I am peeing fire. So I had to basically just finally go, okay, I have to just stop this fake sugar stuff and just start to eat, low carb fruits like berries and that's basically my sugar basically there is berries. That's all that I eat really for sugar. But I did start out trying to do the keto-fy everything, but it just really didn't work with me because of the fact that my body just reacts so negatively to those fake sugar alcohols because of I'm sure it's probably because of all the processing that goes into it. I have no qualms against anybody else using them. They were just not right for my body. So, and my keto now every day, it just depends on what's going on. Sometimes I intermittently fast. Sometimes I've actually started fasting. The longest fast that I've done is 6.5 days. I have to add the 0.5 there. The
makes
0.5 is important, but. I eat pork belly, and the interesting thing too about keto is that I never liked vegetables before I started keto, But now I'm like, oh, I bought a package of Brussels sprouts at the store a couple days ago, and I'm like, I wonder what these would taste like with a bunch of fat on it. Yummy, yummy. And it was really good. I just sauteed them with some garlic and onion powder and some rice wine vinegar and olive oil. And I was like, oh my God, these taste great, And I've actually started craving vegetables, which is totally, like vegetables in my house when I was a kid, it was like, you have to eat your vegetables. It was a forced thing. And now I just can't wait to have them. They taste so good because I get to load them up with fat and salt and cheese. And it makes it so much yummier.
Isn't it funny how, you're eating these things and you're thinking as you're eating them, oh my God, this is so delicious. And then another part of your brain that in the past would be loading on the guilt and the shame when you were saying, oh my God, this is so delicious because it was a tub of Haagen-Dazs or something. Now it's firing on all cylinders and dancing around in the sunshine saying, and it's healthy. And, you're really enjoying that. Yeah. And we don't have to punish you at the same time and make you feel bad about it. So it's like this double hit that's this incredible high that you're enjoying what you're eating and it's good for you.
I am so excited that every evening I get to end my evening with like a third of a cup of berries full of cream with chopped up 88% dark chocolate. I mean, that is like my most favoritist thing in the entire world. I get to end my evening with a dessert that is so delicious. and I don't feel any guilt whatsoever about eating it. And before I felt guilty about eating sweets and eating desserts, but now it's like, this is totally part of my everyday life now that I get to eat something sweet and fat at the same time. And as long as I keep my carbohydrates under like 20 or 30 a day, I don't have, my neuropathy doesn't come back. I mean, I actually in April of 2018, I went to Seattle and I actually ate some macaroni and cheese from Beecher's, which is like the best macaroni and cheese in the entire world. And what happened was I ate non-keto because I was traveling for 3 days. Within 24 hours, my neuropathy came back. My eczema on my hands came back. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like this pain is so horrible. To go from 1 to 2 level pain every single day to go to, a 5 to 7 level pain in your feet. I was like, I am never eating this ever again. And now I have to think about, okay, now I'm prepping, I'm a prepper, and now I got to go through all that food downstairs that I have in my basement and go, I don't know if I'm going to even eat that. If the world ends, I'm going to be fasting because I am not going to eat that standard American diet stuff anymore because it has such a negative effect on my body. It within 24 hours of eating and standard American diet, I think I had macaroni and cheese, I had a grilled cheese, and I think I had a brownie, and some water and maybe a Coke. And like within 24 hours, my feet were on fire again.
Kind of good to see that, isn't it? I mean, it's, no one's ever going to recommend that you go out and have those kind of things that you've been avoiding because you've been avoiding them for your health. But actually, really educational experience to show you, bam, just what the consequences are. Because especially when you haven't been having those things for such a long time, you become so sensitive to them that, like you were saying, within 24 hours, you've got a real resurgence. You can really see that direct consequence very significantly, which is a great reminder to have going forward, isn't it?
Yes, because I know that I will never eat the standard American diet ever again. I don't care what happens. I will never do that ever again. It's just too painful for me. Physically too painful for me.
And what about your dogs? Are your dogs on keto too?
Okay. So what's really funny about this is that, for years, I have been preaching more meat. Dogs are carnivores. They are not carnivores. They're not supposed to be eating corn. They're not supposed to be eating wheat, soy, and they have canine teeth for a reason. It's to tear flesh. So, I had been applying this, all of my students, I always talk about how important diet is and helping your dog with their actual energy level and their moods and stuff by putting more meat into your dog's diet, giving your dog coconut oil to help with their skin. And little did I know that this nutritional information that I had been giving my dog training students for their dogs was so important for myself as well.
Should have just applied it. You should have just eaten what the dog was eating.
Exactly. I should have eaten my dog food, basically. Yes. I probably would have been healthier, sadly. So, yeah.
So the answer is yes then, by the sounds of it. They're keto too.
Well, they aren't full keto, but there's ketos you can be making $9,000 a year. I have to do what I can. I have so much energy now that I started a garden, and so I will be feeding my dogs some of the fruits and vegetables that are grown in my garden. And, I'm planning on hopefully hunting for the first time this year and getting my own meat so that I can feed that to them as well and me as well. So, keto has kind of changed my perception about food and what goes in my body and how it affects me.
People talk about hunter-gatherer diets. You're literally going to become a hunter-gatherer.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Sounds like a great plan. So it sounds to me like you've got lots of fabulous ideas going forward with, what you've been doing and enjoying already, but you've got new products that you're looking to start. So you're hoping to start this puppy raising project. When's that likely to start?
So my female will probably go into heat within the next 2 months. It's 2 months after that, the puppies are delivered, and 2 months after that, they get to go back to their homes to the puppy raisers. So it's not long. I got a while before I have puppies, but again, if you're in the St. Louis area and you would like to help save the life of a diabetic who doesn't necessarily know about keto and how it can help them, then please contact me. And again, my business name is Service Dog Academy. All you have to do is Google me.
Well, we'll have all the details in the show notes as well, so it'll be very easy for people to find you. But you mentioned that you do training courses as well. Are there things you do online?
Yes.
You mentioned that people, trainers and people are contacting you from all over the world. What kind of services can you offer people if they're not in your town that you can directly deal with?
So I teach in-person classes. I teach 4-day in-person classes. So people fly in for 4 days and they learn how to train their own dog for medical alert. I have an online training program for people outside of the area or who can't necessarily afford to fly into classes. Like I have students in Australia, I have students in England and Spain and Germany and Switzerland and Brazil and Mexico, Canada. I have people from all over the world who have used my online programming.
The beauty of the internet, it's truly international. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And the other thing that I also do too is, I'm starting now to produce Labradoodles for the service dog program. And if you are interested in a Labradoodle too, I will be selling several Labradoodles out of that litter to help support the service dog program. So if you are interested in getting a Labradoodle, there is no one like a service dog trainer to raise a puppy prior to 8 weeks of age. I mean, we do so much to these dogs. We take them, 8-week-old puppies, they have had interactions at the nursing home. We have the Boy Scouts come over. We do proprioception exercises with them. We do early introduction and neurological stimulation with them. Prior to 8 weeks of age, 10 million brain cells are being made or taken away from a dog during the first 8 weeks of its life. Every week, 10 million brain cells are being made or taken away. So Oh,
wow. So all those kind of stimuli are really, really important.
It literally magnifies their brain.
And that presumably is one of the huge differences, apart from the fact that they're not very well cared for from any point of view. But that presumably is one of the massive differences between a puppy farm puppy and just a puppy that isn't even in a household like yours, but just has been raised in a caring household. They haven't necessarily stimulated them to the level you have, but they're going to be infinite better than these puppy farm dogs. But the puppies that you're producing are just on a different level because they've had all these stimuli from the get-go.
Yes, we're talking like within hours of being born, we put scent on mommy's nipples, so they smell the smell of the low blood sugar while they're suckling mommy's nipples. So it like imprints the scent into their brain. There's so many things that could be done prior to 8 weeks of age. It's like when you're a kid, you can learn a language at a snap. But when you're 40 years old, it takes you forever to learn a new language. So dogs are the same way. Prior to 5 months of age, they can learn things so quickly. But once we hit that 5 months of age mark, there's literally a biochemical change that happens in their brain. It's called the fear period. And if you haven't set the groundwork prior to 5 months of age, it's very difficult to get them to be a service dog afterwards.
Right.
So I recommend people come to me as early as possible with their dogs. And if you are going to get a dog, I actually have a free 1.5 hour lecture on my website for anybody who's looking for, if you don't want a Labradoodle, just watch my free webinar on how to find a breeder who is doing the same stuff that I do, because breeders can literally do brain damage to your dog by not doing the proper amount of socialization. They need to meet at least 100 people prior to going home. Like a lot of breeders are like, oh, we don't want people in our house. Oh, they could contaminate and stuff like that. Well, if you do maternal antibody testing before the puppies are born, then you know that the puppies are completely safe from parvo and distemper or anything else that people could bring in on their clothing, and you can safely interact with these dogs with the public if you have maternal antibody testing done. But the vast majority of backyard breeders are not doing this. They're not doing today I'm literally going to the vet and I'm spending probably at least $400 on hip and elbow x-rays for the father of the puppy litter to make sure that I am breeding healthy, temperamentally stable puppies. And we're not putting out puppies into the world that are going to be sick and causing problems for people versus saving their lives.
That sounds like a fantastic resource for people to go look at.
It's totally free.
We'll make sure we'll have links for that. You mentioned, looking for, other breeders that do this. How many people are there in the States that are doing it to the level you're doing it, specifically for diabetes? Medical alert.
Well, I'm one of the top medical alert dog trainers in the country, and I'd say there's probably maybe 10 people in the United States that I would trust to be at the same level that I am.
Yeah, not very many.
No, there are not very many. Not at all. I wish there were more. But this industry, unfortunately, again, because there's no education requirement whatsoever, and these dogs cost so much money, there are people who are going into this field thinking, oh my God, I can make $25,000 on a dog. But what they don't realize is that, I could go through 4 dogs before I get a good service dog out of a dog. So it really is not a profit-making scheme. You have to do this because you've been here, or you literally are here to change people's lives, not to make money off of this.
It sounds like maybe this is another path you need to think about taking, is bringing in legislation and getting those rules and regulations changed, and presumably also perhaps getting, involved. I mean, I think you already mentioned that you're already involved in training the trainers, but
yes.
When you're in the top 10, it's at some point it's going to become a responsibility, probably, and with all this newfound energy, to train the trainers and make sure that there are more than 10, make sure there are 100 that you can trust, 1,000 that you can trust.
And if you would have said that to me a year ago, I would have said no way, because I wouldn't have had the energy to do that. But now that I'm on keto, I mean, it's not like I'm hopping out of bed every single morning going, I can't wait what to do. But like when I actually I'm getting there. But now when I actually go out and do something, I can do it for, I went out and I worked in my garden for almost 8 hours straight. And before, I literally would have been out there for 30 minutes and probably would have passed out afterwards. So like I have immeasurable amounts of energy once I get going on doing something.
And an incredibly short period of time. I mean, you said, what did you say? Was it October?
Yep. It's been life-changing for me.
What we talk 6 months or something. I mean, it's nothing, is it? Incredible.
That's why I had to share my story. It's just literally I've been chronically ill since 1997. And to have this diet literally make me go from a completely disabled person, who literally had to use a service dog every day to manage her life, to a person who now has the energy to devote time to legislation, to devote time to helping other disabled people, to devote time to even helping more people than I was doing before. And the reason why part of the reason why I started this program too was because I was not reliably employable because of all of my illnesses. I was not reliably employable. 39 sick days in 1 year. No one wants you as an employee when you have 39 sick days in 1 year. But now that I'm on keto and now that my health has taken a complete 180, I'm like, I need to do as much as possible now to help people feel better. And if they, aren't going to be changing their diet, then I'm going to help them save their lives with the use of a medical alert dog. I'm going to change the way the world works.
And when you mentioned Labradoodle, and I know a little bit about those. I know a few people who have them. And did you choose that breed because of the issues with being, with allergies?
Yes.
Because they're hypoallergenic, aren't they? So,
like when my ex-husband asked me what I wanted in life, I told him I wanted two things. I wanted a yellow lab named Lucy, and a chocolate lab named Bella. That's all I wanted out of life. I didn't care about big fancy cars. I didn't care about big houses with picket fences. All I wanted my entire life was a yellow lab named Lucy and a chocolate lab named Bella. And unfortunately, I'm such a lab lover. I mean, I love labs so much, but my asthma is getting to the point where it's so bad that I need to start to move into more hypoallergenic breeds because of that, and because I am allergic. I literally am allergic to dogs, but I don't care. I am going to continue working with dogs as long as I can. As long as I'm physically able to do so, I will work with dogs for the rest of my life. This is my passion. I will do nothing else.
But the ones that are actually in your house all the time, you don't have an issue with now from that point of view?
No, I do.
Oh, you still do?
I still do. If they lick my face, oh yeah, I will have hives all over my face. If my hands are don't really get hives on them. If they scratch me, I'll get hives. I do still have allergies to them.
So it's just the hair that doesn't set it off. Other things do.
It's actually not the hair. So the hair is not what causes the allergy. It's actually the saliva. So in order to actually have a hypoallergenic dog, you have to have a salivaless dog. But what they've found is that the poodle is less allergenic than other breeds. So that's why I've chosen to move into Labradoodles, is because there's the potential for me to be able to breathe better.
I assumed it was all down to the hair, and it's something I'm sure I read somewhere about lack of shedding or something. That's all just a bit of a myth then, by the sounds of it. It's all to do with the saliva and poodles having less problematic. How fascinating. Well, I love learning something new every day. So.
Well, I'm glad I helped.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been fantastic talking to you about this today. Perhaps you can wrap up with a top tip for the listeners.
Well, as I told you guys, I started this journey because I asked how to get closer to God, and God told me to start fasting. I thought it was the devil talking, but God told me to start fasting. And my recommendation is if you're on a ketogenic diet, just maybe try fasting. Maybe try fasting for 12 hours and see what happens. See what happens to your body. And eventually you might start to enjoy it, because, there has been scientific studies. There was that one fasting study that was done in, I think it was last year, that if you fast for 4 days, you increase your pancreatic beta cells, which are the cells that help produce insulin. So fasting has the ability to not only ketogenic living, but the combination of ketogenic and fasting really has the ability to help heal your body. And since God was the one that told me to do it, I'm going to share that with your audience. And I'm going to recommend that you do exactly what Megan Ramos says to do, which is just start out slowly, build that fasting muscle. Don't try and do a 7-day fast the first time that you do this. Do exactly what I did. Start out small and work your way up.
And we did kind of skip over that. You've reminded me from saying that. What was the timing with you thinking about fasting and then that television program you watched? Did they happen to come at about the same time, or did you experiment with the fasting for a while and then the ketogenic bit came in later?
No. So I heard God tell me to fast in August of 2017. I learned about ketogenic diets in October of 2017. I learned about fasting in October of 2017. And it took me about 3 months before I felt like I was safe enough to actually try a fast.
I see. So it was just a bit of a stack
fasting.
Of things
Yes.
that came at sort of pretty well at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
And what a difference, what a change in direction your life took at that point.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, it's been an honor and a privilege talking to someone who pays it forward with the energy and the verve, the kindness and compassion that you do. Thank you so much for sharing all that with me today.
And thank you for having me on. I love sharing my story. I want people to be healthy because I've been there. I've been in pain all day, every day. And it's so nice to no longer be in pain and to have a body that is actually functional and be a normal person.
I can't wait to see what another year on keto does for you. Your energy is going to be boundless. You will have changed all the legislation. You will be the top trainer in the country. Not the country, the world.
The world. There we go. There we go. Perfect.
And we'll be seeing you on every chat show across the world, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Mary.
Yeah. We'll talk to you soon.
To get the resources and links from the show, please go to ketowomanpodcast.com. Are you my next extraordinary woman? Maybe you've got an idea for a show, a topic you want to hear about. Let me know how I can tickle your earbuds by dropping me a line at daisy@ketowomanpodcast.com. If you fancy joining me on this exciting adventure and want to help me create new episodes, please go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/KetoWoman, or simply hit the support button on the Keto Woman podcast website. It's thanks to the two keto dudes that I'm hosting this podcast, so please consider heading to their Patreon page at patreon.2keto.com and help them bring you more podcasts like this one. Please help other people hear about and find this podcast by reviewing the show on iTunes and Facebook. Every star and review really does help. It doesn't go unnoticed by me, the people who regularly like, share and comment on my posts. Your support means the world to me. Thank you. This week's quote is from Robert Wagner. A dog will teach you unconditional love. If you can have that in your life, things won't be too bad. I have got another one, because this is so true of mine, and this is from Franklin P. Jones. Scratch a dog and you'll find a permanent job. Bye-bye, Keto Lovelies.